As pressure mounts over the Gaza war and the intercepted aid flotilla, U.S. President Donald Trump has issued Hamas an ultimatum: accept a proposed peace deal by Sunday evening, Washington time, or face what he called unprecedented consequences. He blamed the group for the October 7th massacre and said that more than 25,000 of its fighters have been killed, urging civilians to evacuate and detainees to be released as part of a deal that he says could bring Middle East peace. Welcome to a new episode of Qnews special coverage. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Stay tuned for in-depth analysis on the ongoing situation and its consequences. In a post on his Truth Social account, U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that Hamas has long been a ruthless, violent threat and blamed it for the October 7th massacre, saying that over 25,000 Hamas soldiers, as per his description, have already been killed. He set a firm deadline Sunday at 6 p.m. Washington time for Hamas to accept a proposed peace deal or face unprecedented consequences, urged innocent Palestinians to evacuate danger zones, and called for immediate release for all its detainees, insisting that the deal would bring Middle East peace. In a phone call requested by Washington, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan told U.S. President Donald Trump that Turkey welcomed efforts to secure regional peace, but stressed that Israel must halt its attacks for any progress. According to the Turkish presidency, Erdogan assured Trump that Ankara would continue backing peace initiatives and contribute his vision for global stability. They also discussed bilateral relations, with Erdogan emphasizing the importance of advancing cooperation, particularly in the defense industry. Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 66,200 and over 169,100 wounded. The Gaza Ministry of Health has reported that hospitals in the Gaza Strip have received 63 dead and 227 others injured in the past 24 hours. The Gaza Ministry of Health has also reported that 15 were dead and 18 wounded as a result of the Israeli bombing of 8 centers in the last 24 hours. It also reported that the number of victims from the bombing of 8 centers has risen to more than 2,500 deaths and more than 19,000 wounded. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the international relations expert, Dr. Hussam Al-Buqai. Welcome to Qnews. Dr. Hussam, how realistic is President Trump's Sunday deadline for Hamas to accept a peace deal, and what consequences could follow if the group rejects it?
In the outset, my greetings to you and the audience of Qnews. Such a time and the deadline is not realistic at all. And also, I believe the proposal by Donald Trump, after consultation along with Arab leaders and Islamic leaders, and also with Benjamin Netanyahu, and there are a lot of reports indicating that this proposal is not realistic, and they are presented to the Arab leaders, and there is a need for a very long time and further discussion. It includes a lot of points that can be seen by several leaders, and several analysts are positive and several others are negative. In regard to the ceasefire and other aspects of the proposal, we can see the delivery of assistance can be continued under the proposal. Also, they talked about the forced displacement of the Palestinians from their territories, and there is a reconstruction plan in Gaza Strip. Some people believe these are the positive points in the proposal by Trump. But at the same time, there are several other points that can be a trap. Through my follow-up of the journalism from Israel, there are several reports indicating definitely that there are several challenges against the execution of the proposal. The connection between the withdrawal of the army of Israel with the disarmament of Hamas, there is a lot of assessments by Hamas and other factions that needs real ceasefire. So, talking by any way, in order to reach at the end to a Palestinian state on the borders of 67, all of these matters are of the traps available in the Trump proposal. It is emphasized that they are available and it is a realistic points. I'd like to remind the audience and you of the 27th of August meeting when Trump attended along with Kushner the meeting and Tony Blair, and there are emphasis from the international journalism that this meeting has several strategic matters. Such meeting during that day, there were several bases were laid in regard to the announcements indicated during the Trump proposal. All of that emphasize that this plan needs more time for further discussion. In one of the aspects of the plan, it is trading the ceasefire with ending the Palestinian cause.
And sir, to what extent does setting such an ultimatum risk escalating the conflict further, especially amid ongoing Israeli bombardments and mass civilian casualties?
As everyone knows, these casualties reached unprecedented numbers and amounts, more than 160,000 casualties and 66,000 martyrs. This is a tremendous amount of wounded and casualties and death toll. In addition to the destruction, around 90% of the base and establishments and the infrastructure of Gaza. We are aware that the decision that shall be taken is a decision of fate, and Hamas currently has a very strict and a very fragile and volatile situation. There were several timelines for Hamas to take several decisions that were to reach a certain situation. They would have ended the division inside Palestine between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and to give the authority for the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is recognized internationally as the proper and legitimate authorization. And based on what happened in the General Assembly of the UN, there is a call for the Palestinian Authority to take responsibility and assume governance over the Gaza Strip. But Hamas is in a very delicate situation and critical position now. And so the international community considers it as a terrorist act and terrorist organization. There was an opportunity for reconciliation and to end the division inside Palestine.
And how do Trump's claims about Hamas losses compare with independent assessments, and how might such figures shape public perception and policy?
There are a lot of assessments in regard to the losses of Hamas, and it is evident that there are a lot of losses, and the Hamas power has been weakened, not only in the infrastructure but in other aspects. given the siege around the Gaza Strip, in addition to the material and physical losses and the leverage that Israel took over Hamas, also the ousting of the Syria regime, and the cut of the ties between Iran and Hamas in Gaza, that had adverse impact and that prevented any military added assistances or support to Hamas. Given that there are a lot of assessments and evaluations in the international journalism talking about Hamas that is now currently very far away from victory, and there are assessments that the war may be prolonged more than that, but this is connected to the end of Hamas presence in Gaza Strip, and that was evident from the very beginning in the incidents on the 7th of October.
And sir, what are the humanitarian implications of calling on civilians to evacuate quote-unquote danger zones, as Trump called it, when Gaza's population has few, if any, safe places to go?
I believe after this long time and after all of these atrocities exercised by Israel against civilians in Gaza, there is no safe place in Gaza for the people to resort back to. As you just mentioned during the previous part, all the infrastructure and services in Gaza ended because of the atrocities and aggression of Israel. Also, given the power outage and several services that has stopped, no place in Gaza now is safe. All of these matters are made in the purpose of make the Gaza Strip unlivable by the first time, and for the end purpose. It is by Israel as targeting the civilians and targeting the services, infrastructure, and other places and facilities. As I just mentioned, this is to end all services in the Gaza Strip to make it unable for anyone to live in. And other assessments indicate that 90% of the buildings were destroyed in Gaza.
Let's talk about the Turkish role. How might Erdogan's insistence that Israel halt its attacks influence Washington's strategy, and could Turkey actually play a meaningful mediating role in advancing peace efforts?
Is a great country in the region, and it has a great role, and it has the ability and capacity, in addition to all the tools, to give her the leadership position into this regard. But I need to mention also, in regard to Palestinian file, it is not the only file between Israel and Turkey. There are several other crises in the ties and relations between both countries, like the influence areas in Syria after the ousting of Bashar al-Assad regime. But in the reality, there are economic ties at a large scale between Israel and Turkey. It can be an incentive to push forward the peace efforts into this regard in a way or another. Also, given the coordination between Turkey and several major regional countries like Egypt, this is a main driver. Egypt is a main driver into this regard, along with Qatar, KSA, Iran, and other Islamist states that may form a very strong support mean and tool in order to push forward the peace efforts.
Sir, with over 66,000 Palestinians killed and thousands more injured, how credible is any peace proposal now that doesn't include accountability for war crimes?
Not only accountability against Israel, we have seen always the impunity of Israel against the international law and rules and at all political levels, diplomatic, military levels. We have seen evident the impunity of Israel over the past 2 years when they rejected any internationally issued decisions from the international judicial bodies. For example, Even the ICC decision and the arrest warrant against Netanyahu and Gallant were refused and not being considered by USA or even Israel. And we have seen the members targeting and the targeting of the members of the ICC and other judicial bodies. All of that is against the interests of the Palestinian state. Israel is used to impunity. The most important question to my mind, who is the responsible of the atrocity if Israel accepts the initiative? There are no there is nothing in the plan proposed until now. There is no commitment on Israel. And that is according to the assessment and evaluations of Israel. They only assess the current situation for their best interest. This is for ensuring their interest maintaining. That comes back to the evaluations of Israel from the first stance and the administration of USA. So with Israel there is no guarantees, neither the international law nor the norms nor the decrees or decisions issued by judicial bodies at the international level because of the unprecedented US support.
And could the bombing of 8 centers and the high civilian death toll undermine international support for Trump's proposed deal or complicate its implementation?
These are one of the staking points when the delivery of assistance are provided to Palestinians in Gaza. Who is responsible for the distribution? These are a vague point and is a source of confusion. As we have seen over the past 2 years, the reconstruction or return of international employees and staff working in Gaza in humanitarian aid or other efforts, they are faced the targeting of Israelis. We have seen the targeting of journalists. We have seen other atrocities and aggression acts by Israel. So it is apparent that this point is very vague.
Well, that was Dr. Hussam Al-Buqai from Cairo, international relations expert. Thank you so much for joining us here on Q News. Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has visited Gaza flotilla activists detained in Ashdod in October 2nd, denouncing them as supporters of killers. He entered a boat alleging no humanitarian aid was aboard, and the Israeli Foreign Ministry confirmed activists were safe and in good health. Rights group Adela said that the detainees would be handed to immigration authorities, transferred to Kidziot prison in southern Israel, and later deported. Israel's prison service has released footage it claimed showed Gaza flotilla activists in detention, though the individuals were not identified. The video depicted people receiving wristbands before being escorted into a truck by prison officers. According to an official statement, 473 individuals from the flotilla have been transferred to a prison in southern Israel, where detainees are being held following their interception at sea. Israeli peace activists have protested against the military's interception of the global Sumut flotilla, which carried aid to Gaza. The demonstrators gathered near the Gaza border but were forcibly dispersed by soldiers. A day earlier, Israel faced international backlash after seizing nearly 40 flotilla boats and detaining over 450 foreign activists, including Swedish campaigner Greta Thunberg. Organizers said that most detainees were moved to a cargo ship before reaching Ashdod, while one vessel, the Marionette, continued sailing towards Gaza later on Thursday. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the Professor of Political Science at Al-Quds University, Dr. Ayman Al-Raqb. Welcome to Q News. Now, Professor Ayman, what does Itamar Ben-Gvir's inflammatory visit to the detained flotilla activists reveal about the Israeli government's broader stance towards humanitarian missions and dissent?
For everyone and the audience of Cairo Q News. The face that is shown through Itamar Ben-Gvir and the extremist government give the real face and image of the Israeli occupation that has always rejected any activation and activism by the international community. They always exercised their aggression. Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir previously attacked the USA before giving them the current situation during Trump administration. They attacked the USA president despite the whole of the support provided by the US administration and the political cover provided by USA to Israel. But Ben-Gvir and Smotrich attacked Ben-Gvir, and I believe he is a phenomenon. He believes that more extremism will persuade the partners and the supporters of him to elect him. Until now, the survey polls give him more votes. The last survey poll gave him 8 seats and 8 positions and more votes. That encourage Ben-Gvir to have more extremism, as he always doing against the Palestinians and even all the supporters of Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. How legal is Israel's detention and planned deportation of foreign activists intercepted in international waters under international maritime law?
Done by Israel is a violation to all international laws and norms. Even the Palestinian international maritime and waters are Palestinian waters. There is no right for the occupation to prevent the entry of any vessel. So when we talk about Palestinian and territorial water and activists coming to support the Palestinians to be detained ruthlessly by Israel, this is not acceptable, and this is of a paramount importance for the international community to focus on all of these acts by Israel in order to give expectations for any future missions by the international community. And this is a model of the occupation by Israel rejecting any rights of life for Palestinians and refuse any support for Palestinian lives. This is the model that incited the moves and acts in the 7th of October by the same way. They didn't have any lessons learned from the 7th of October. They don't need any peace in the region. They provide themselves as victims. But now it is apparent in front of the whole international world that this is the real image of the Israeli occupation. And beyond of that, all the representatives of Israel in front of the world, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, and behind them, Netanyahu. Mm-hmm. I'd like to mention all away from the political scene, like Lieberman. They are not less in extremism than Ben-Gvir, but they have their own policies to justify the killing and aggression against the Palestinians. They justify themselves in front of everyone who comes to support the Palestinians.
Mm-hmm. And what are the implications of Israel alleging that there was no humanitarian aid aboard the flotilla? And how credible is this claim, given, of course, the mission's stated purpose?
The Israeli occupation will try to show that this is a political move only with a political symbol without any humanitarian aids on board. But these are lies. We have seen the announcements by the flotilla and we have seen the pictures full of humanitarian assistance and aids on the flotilla vessels, more than 40 vessels. For them, this is a matter of threat for their political stance in front of the international community. They were afraid of the reactions of other countries or the activists' countries. They expected any chaos in the territorial water. They started to say that these are political vessels without any humanitarian aids.
Sir, how might the footage of the detainees being processed and transferred to prisons affect Israel's image globally, particularly amid accusations of human rights abuses? We all know how the world now views Israel, but these images of the activists being driven to the prison, how might this perceive a more extended image of Israel in the eyes of the world?
State is over all of that, and they are used to that. When there is a referendum inside the USA among the youth and more than 50% does not support Israel, we have seen this transformation. We have seen the uprisings and protests from several capitals, most importantly from London, supporting Palestinians. All of these videos and images give a model how real Israel face is, and the real image of Israel and the real atrocities of Israel for the decision makers to consider all of these atrocities. This is a prototype that has become very evident in front of everyone, how they deal and treat the activists and supporters. All of these videos will increase the atrocities of Israel, on the other hand, that may force for any legal matters or legal acts against Israel. We call for that, and there is a call to freeze the membership of Israel inside the UN because of their violations of their commitments and obligations within the international laws.
What legal avenues are available to the 473 detained activists, and could their treatment lead to international legal challenges against Israel?
Yes, there may be some legal trends or legal activities against Israel to hold Israel accountable in front of the judicial bodies internationally because of their violations. These incidents will not be innocent. They will be released. I believe they will target and resort to the legal pathways. These 473 activists may move at the international level in order to call for accountability against Israel and its atrocities. They will increase their efforts and their refusal against Israel, and I believe they will form crews and teams to hold Israel accountable.
Sir, how significant is the fact that Israeli peace activists protested the flotilla interception? What does their treatment say about the dissent and free expression within Israel?
We are talking about institutions of rights and human rights inside Israel. They move and they criticize the occupation, the Israeli occupation also set sieges and obstacles against them. The occupation state has no red lines, even with Israelis. There is only one direction, which is the extremist right. And that government of extremists push Netanyahu to their targets and purposes. Ben Gvir is not only but a tool in the hands of the government, but the main direction is more atrocities and more confinements, more obstacles against the right institutions, even against the innocent civilians of Palestine. And they have a desire to continue the war in the region. They strike in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Yemen. They pay no attention to the international law.
Well, that was Professor Dr. Ayman Al-Raqb, the Professor of Political Science at Al-Quds University, joining us from Cairo. Thank you so much for being with us here on Q News. And this concludes our special coverage for tonight. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to always stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.